Hi, I'm Sarah Cowgill. Joining me today are Graham Noble, Dave Patterson, Michelle White, and Andrew Moran. And this is the Conservative 5, Liberty Nation's online TV news program. On today's episode, Trump will not give an inch. President Trump has lobbed a shot at ISIS, and we'll discuss in serious with Syria. Australia is ramping up its goal to protect minor children as restrictions have gone into effect and Aussies leave USA behind in children's protection. Finally, another example of Trump derangement syndrome is on full display as Congress takes up sides with the cartel, forcing Trump to flex his muscles to an insane Congress. Another episode of Just for Fun, Volume 84, will round out the program. All this and more coming up in this edition of the Conservative 5.
One night only.
President Trump can only put up with something stuck in the craw for a brief amount of time before getting busy in ridding that cause. Lately, the president is getting serious with Syria, where 3 U.S. servicemen were attacked and killed by an ISIS ambush, as Trump told reporters, "We will retaliate." Okay, Dave, what does retaliate even mean? I mean, that's kind of broad.
Well, serious retaliation likely translates into escalated military actions in Syria. And, drawing from Trump's past playbook of decisive airstrikes, this could include precision strikes, drone operations, special forces, and targeting ISIS leadership and their hideouts, as well as, supply lines in eastern and central Syria. The problem here, though, is analysts suggest it might involve intensified intelligence sharing with Syria, and that's kind of problematic. But as long as it's focused on ISIS, I suspect that would be, okay. But then you have to realize that if you go after ISIS in Syria, it's going to be pretty tricky setting about killing ISIS members without civilian casualties. And that's going to be difficult, but probably necessary if you're going to maintain any of the newly achieved relationship between the U.S. and Syria's interim president, al-Shara. And I think that's something you want to be very careful about preserving.
So, who all is on board with Trump? I mean, Syria has said, "Hey, we're with you on this. This was wrong, and we want to fix it." But who else in that region is going to stand up and be willing to take a hit, Andrew?
Okay, before I answer that question, my first question is, why are hundreds, and some estimates have seen 2,000, why are all these troops in Syria in the first place anyway? And how much longer do they need to be stationed in Syria to restabilize the country or stabilize the region? Now, I'm not blaming President Trump for this. He didn't cause this. This whole ISIS situation happened under Obama when he indirectly supported the creation of ISIS through al-Qaeda and the splinter cells. But the administration will say constantly that the U.S. needs to help the former al-Qaeda leader, al-Shara, and prevent ISIS from attacking U.S. forces. But the current U.S. presence is not deterring that whatsoever. It's exacerbating the situation. And I'm sure a guy like al-Shara, who you cannot trust with a 10-foot pole, considering he was one of the head al-Qaeda guys, I'm sure he loves the idea of U.S. forces being attacked so that American forces will stay in Syria and ensure there isn't an intensification of the civil war and lead to a regime change of al-Shara. So I'm sure any neocon or interventionist countries in the region would prefer to have American forces constantly attacked, because then they're going to be thrown into the war. And I'm sure, Dave Patterson will come up some war plans for, regime change in any other country. But for now, I mean, most Americans oppose any type of action in the Middle East. We've learned the last 30 years how, even under Reagan, he wrote in Reagan Diaries that nobody understands the complexities of Middle Eastern politics. And lo and behold, 40 years later, U.S. is still involved in the Middle East. So I hope that answers your question, sir.
Nobody in the Middle East, Andrew, understands the complexities of
exactly.
Right.
Good point.
Okay, so it's been said that Syria is the last stronghold for ISIS. So is this beginning of the end for ISIS, Graham?
No, I would say not. ISIS has at least pockets or affiliated groups all over the world. I mean, we're talking in the Levant, which is otherwise known as North Africa. And then you've got even ISIS affiliated groups in parts in certain places in the Far East, even, and of course all over the Middle East and places like kind of Central South Asia, places like Chechnya. A lot of those breakaway or former Soviet republics have got various groups that are at least affiliated with or kind of supporters, sympathizers of the Islamic State. So I think to say that Syria is the last stronghold, it might be the last remaining. It might be a country where that has perhaps the largest concentration, perhaps, of ISIS fighters. But there's really no destroying ISIS completely. There never will be, unless there is an entire change of heart among the global Muslim population and they actually decide to turn against the fundamentalists. That is the only way that this whole thing is ever going to end. I do think it's kind of a good idea for us to encourage, if you like, kind of sacrifice one of these Middle Eastern countries and allow it to become a major allow it to become a caliphate. And it to become a completely ISIS-dominated country that sucks in all the ISIS fighters and groups from all over the rest of the world, and then we've got them all in one place, which would be pretty good for us.
Right. If I may add one thing too, I mean, you may destroy ISIS, but there's always going to be another organization to step up. We see it within these terrorist organizations. You kill one head, and then another one just pops up, whether it's Hezbollah, whether it's Taliban or Al Qaeda. Then there'll just be another organization, and you'll see that the neocons helped fund it too and gave it weapons, and it was created because of some regime change, unintended consequences. So, the ISIS can destroy it, more will just pop up.
Well, Michelle, what I've kind of been out of the loop on this, but has Congress, are they involved in this? Are the media involved in this? What's going on there?
Well, I don't really listen to what the mainstream media says. This one really hit close to home because I was a reporter in Iowa and I covered Eastern Iowa. And I, side note, was also Miss Iowa for America 2021. So Iowa has a dear place in my heart, and the Iowa, I just love Iowa and its people. So I've been watching what the delegation has been saying, and not surprisingly, they're supportive of President Trump. Senator Joni Ernst is a veteran and served in the National Guard in Iowa. And she has highlighted the Islamic threat and said that we need to take this seriously, combating their mission there was to combat ISIS and to protect us from radical Islamist terrorists. And similarly, Congresswoman Ashley Hinson said anyone who attacks our troops must and will be held accountable. So I think they are in support of President Trump. Rick Crawford, who chairs the House Intelligence Committee, said that they needed to be treated like the deadly threat that they are. And how do you retaliate against a deadly threat? You like what President Trump did with Iran. You bomb them. So I don't know what is up his sleeve. It'll be interesting what he says tonight. But I think he has the backing of Congress. I haven't found anybody speaking out against it, because that really would be in poor taste to speak out against retaliating against soldiers being killed. But the vast majority of American people, as we could tell from the response of the Iran bombing, are backing him. So I really don't care what the media says, but I do find it heartwarming that at least some members of Congress are speaking out in support, particularly from Iowa.
I think too, you have to look at, take a step back and take a look at the larger picture. And the fact is that Trump is withdrawing steadily from Middle East. His national security strategy has highlighted the fact that his focus is going to be on the Americas and the Indo-Pacific, and consequently, this business with ISIS may be a momentary perturbation in an otherwise perfect plan. And I think that it will require very specific, and we do when we have the capability and we have the intelligence capability to make targeted strikes on ISIS and make their life miserable.
Well, I guess that's a goal. Well, what we all know, I don't care who you are, we all know Trump is usually a man of his word. So let's see where he can take the Syria situation. We will keep you posted as we watch the battle unfold. Thanks for tuning in. We appreciate it. The Australians are leaving a well-marked trail for the rest of us to follow when it comes to the protection of minors under the age of 16. The latest in a series of what some call drastic measures stems from state and federal efforts that align with the safe and supported national framework for protecting Australia's children. It's a long-term strategy to reduce child abuse and neglect. So what have they done? Well, the country is introducing the first worldwide ban on underage kids to include TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. It's kind of drastic. So, Michelle, is this another whack-a-mole in the making? Are we going to have one ban and then somebody else will pop up with a VPN or some other way around the hole?
Well, hopefully not. I think they do serve as an example. I am clearly not a big fan of big government intruding into personal spaces or parental spaces for that matter. But in this instance, the harm is so great. And as you said, it's so pervasive. Some parents don't put up guardrails or don't know how to put up guardrails. So I think it is necessary. I did see, don't quote me, but I know there was another European country that followed suit and they were restricting but not forbidding social media for teens. I think it's necessary. I watched a Senate Judiciary Committee hearing about 2 years ago now where my favorite part of it was Senator Josh Hawley grilling the CEOs of the social media heads, and they had members of families in the audience with pictures of their kids who had committed suicide or who were exposed to bullying or sexual exploitation on social media. And he grilled Zuckerberg and asked him how he apologized to these families. And he ended up doing that, turning around and apologizing. He said, he invited him, you could turn around and do that now.
Would you like to apologize for what you've done to these good people?
I'm sorry for everything that you've done. Knowing that to go through the things that your families have suffered.
It was a great soundbite. And he did. He apologized. But what was most astounding in this hearing is that Holly brought the receipts that Facebook already knew about the numbers of how many kids are exposed to nudity, sexual exploitation, bullying, and they did nothing about it. So if the government has to step in to do that and keep it out of their reach, I hate to say it, but in this instance, it might be necessary. Just like we don't give them driver's licenses till they're 16, or we don't let them have alcohol till they're 18. The brains are not finished developing until they're 25. So what they see, hear, and take part of in these early years, these teenage years when they're still developing, can be detrimental for life. And then on the other side of that, AI, I've seen at least 2 stories of kids that have committed suicide, and AI helped them. And the parents didn't know about it until it was too late. So I do think that Australia is doing the right thing in this situation. But they also take guns away from people. So I don't think they're right all across the board. I hope it does start a trend because I think it's too hard to get a handle on. So there needs to be some guardrails in place.
Well, personally, I agree with Michelle. I don't like the government parenting our kids. But what good will come of this, Dave?
Well, I think that the challenge in policing of the policy is going to be exactly that, policing the policy, because it puts the obligation on the media platform, the provider, and no specific methodology is mandated. So it's kind of like, we want you to do this, but we don't know exactly how you're going to do it, but we expect you to do it effectively. And, Australia's e-safety commissioner is supposed to enforce the ban and supposed to prioritize the platforms where the highest number of underage users are involved. And but again, compliance is left up to the companies that own the platforms. And so in the unlikely event, I think that they should catch an offending company, the fines are pretty substantial. I mean, they're $33 million for the first offense. But the standard that they have to meet is a low bar. I mean, reasonable efforts have to be made. Well, what constitutes reasonable?
Reasonable.
Define reasonable? Is that what you're telling me?
Right.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
so how are you going to do that? But as of mid-December, reports are that millions of underage accounts were suspended, and what they've experienced in that short period of time is that a vast majority of the children have found workarounds like using VPNs and fake details that are where they're able to get around the ban.
Well, I want to know where, the phones come into play. I mean, is that going to be part of the ban? Because that's where you're getting some of these blackmail sexting things that are going on. Graham, I mean, what's your take on this?
Well, I think, I'm kind of very much aligned with Michelle on this one, is because I'm probably like the rest of you here on this panel. I am very much opposed to government stepping in and banning pretty much anything, really. And I have my own theory that social media's days are numbered, to be honest, and that's probably a good thing. But social media itself is so dreadfully damaging to young people. Let's say anyone, I think, under the age of probably mid-20s even. I think social media has a horrendous idea, and it should be the parents who are actually policing this, but of course they're not, and it's not even easy for them to do so. If their child has a cell phone, then how do they actually stop that child using one or more social media platforms? So it is a horrendous thing. I just don't understand how the Australian government thinks that they're going to manage to police this. Coming back to what Dave said about they're expecting kind of a reasonable effort on the part of social media platforms. Well, as Dave asked the question, what does that even mean, a reasonable effort? I mean, it would be easy for these social media platforms to say, you know what, we tried. I mean, we had little boxes pop up on your screen when you come to our site, and it says, click here.
Are you 18? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you do that, when I go online to buy ammunition, I'm going to, the Sportsman's Guide site or whatever, and a little box pops up and says, you have to be over 21 to access this site. And I just click the little button that says, yes, I'm over 21, and I'm in.
Yeah, I mean, if that's reasonable, then they've got a lot of work to do ahead of them.
Oh, yeah. So that was mean. I think AI is actually going to kill social media. Now, for me to explain how that's going to happen is a whole other segment, probably.
So, Andrew, you want in on this? You got kids. I mean, how? And you got young kids. I mean, are you worried about what's going to happen when they're old enough to, sneak off to the library and look up porn?
Why is it the first thing that comes to your mind is they're going to look up pornography? Jesus, that's not a good endowment.
They could. I said they could. Not put them.
They could also use the library for research and AI research. But okay, I'm leaving the contrarian here.
Or research or.
The main purpose of libraries these days is for homeless people to get a good night's sleep, I think.
Oh boy. All right. Okay. So when you say, I don't like government, but I don't like government doing this, but that is the beginning of the erosion of even more of your liberty. That's what the government does. There's always some group, some individual says, I don't like big government, but. So I don't support this idea. I think it's foolhardy. There was a clip recently, and Dave I made a mention of this. There was a clip recently of Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese, I think his name is, and he was talking to a young girl who was on her phone, and they asked her, "Oh, what do you think of this social media ban?" And she just laughed in his face and said, "Yeah, it's worthless because we can use all these different maneuvers to access these websites, and they can use VPNs or Graham said, the fake IDs." But his response was quite ignorant. He said, "Yeah, we'll stop those too." But the youngins, the young whippersnappers, they are savvy. They are tech savvy. They know how to circumvent all of these bans, all these restrictions. And what's stopping any entrepreneur from establishing any social media alternative? And if you look at the list of what's banned, it's ridiculous because you're banning X, you're banning Facebook. But the ones that are omitted from the list are things like Discord and Telegram. Has anyone ever used Discord? That is an area for sex trafficking and engaging in nefarious methods. So if you want to ban X, which is a terrific website, it's transformed into an excellent outlet, then you should also be banning things like Discord. Or if you want to go even further and you want to prevent kids from being exposed to such content, why don't you ban Netflix? Have you seen the content that's generated on Netflix too? Mm-hmm. It's up to the parent, no matter how stupid this father or mother is, it's up to that person to impose the safeguards to ensure that children are not exposed to this nonsense. It's not up to the government, because when people concede their liberty for something as inane as social media, what's to stop from taking the next measure? We talk about our brain. Yes, we all agree social media is horrible for you. It's horrible for your brain. It doesn't, your brain doesn't, as Michelle alluded to, it doesn't mature until you're 25. Some new studies said perhaps even 33, but regardless. But we send 18-year-olds off to war to fight a regime change war. So why are we still worried about social media? And when I say these things, I'm always looking at Dave's response. I see Dave was shaking his head.
What I found interesting in this whole discussion is that Australia, apparently, they may have in some way, but that is not their primary focus, to have public service announcements focused on parents. And it's their responsibility. It's not some company's responsibility. It's the parents' responsibility. Now, I realize that there are a lot of irresponsible parents, but nonetheless, that doesn't take away from the fact that the only people who are with their children 24/7 are the parents. And they do have an obligation to police what their kids are doing. It's not up to everyone else in some sort of corporate sense to do that.
I would agree with both of you. However, we're not sending 13-year-old girls off to war, and they are exposed to nudity and pornography and sex trafficking at the more mild social media channels that we just discussed. So, and there were a lot of terrible parents out there that give their kids a phone, give their kids access to the media, which is a gateway to all of those ills and harms. And there's no way to stop them. I think it's like, giving your kid a driver's license. That's a lethal weapon. I think social media is far more dangerous to children than giving them a driver's license to drive a car. And we know that the government does have some regulation of that. And I totally agree with you, Andrew. You open the door a little bit to the government, and then they swing it wide open, or they push it wide open. But I don't see any other way around this when we have irresponsible parents and we have social media channels that are looking to make money and profit off of kids. So I don't see any other way around it. I think you need a kitchen sink approach. You have to get parents involved. You have to do PSAs. You have to teach them about the ills. You have to have no phones in schools. And it has to be an all throw everything at it, or these kids are, that's going to be the next generation.
If you want to talk about irresponsible parents, what kids who feed their kids Cheetos and Lucky Charms? You gotta ban that too.
That too.
we gotta wrap this up. And I wish Australia some good luck. I'd like to see something happen that's positive when it comes to kids and social media. Right. But, the next visit to the swamp probably ought to let Donald Trump know if it's working or not. We're still dealing with several pressing crises and would like a sure thing if possible. Thanks for tuning in, folks. More dangerous symptoms of Trump derangement syndrome have come to glaring light as some members of Congress have taken up sides with members of the Venezuela cartels. This after September airstrike on a drug-running boat headed for American shores. Don't be fooled by the cries from the left. Trump's decision saved thousands of lives who could have died from fentanyl-laced drugs. So let's get into this nonsense by the progressive left. Do we really have the right weapon for the war on drugs? Or is this another showboating situation, Michelle?
Well, they're definitely showboating. Trump is, like I said in an earlier question, he's throwing the kitchen sink at this problem of Venezuelan narco terrorists, and they're losing their minds. But it's the usual suspects attacking him, right? It's Congressman Jamie Raskin. He's saying that the Congress needs to declare war. This is not war. The last 40 years of declaring war on drugs has not been working. So he's doing something different. And we're not declaring war. We're stopping terrorists from coming into our country, just like we would if they were ISIS trying to come over the border, or at least Trump would. The last administration didn't. But by the way, our third president, Thomas Jefferson, fought 4 Muslim states and stood up to all of their intimidation and sent the U.S. Navy and the Marines when the Barbary pirates were attacking merchant ships and taking our sailors hostage. So this is no different. They're not taking hostages, but they're killing thousands of Americans. So I think blowing them out of the water is absolutely constitutional. We do have precedent for it. And for anyone to say that it's not, it's showboating, it's grandstanding, and it's TDS. It's ridiculous. The others that are speaking out against him, Adam Schiff, enough said. Anything that Trump does, he's just going to be unreasonable about. And he wants to pass legislation that's going to tie the president's hands. I don't think that's going to go anywhere. I don't think he's going to have the support. But I did watch an interview yesterday with a North Carolina Congressman, Pat Harrigan, and he said there's broad bipartisan support to do something different, also recognizing that nothing has worked in combating not just fentanyl, but drugs. So I think we just have to wait and see what Congress is going to do as these strikes continue. But he absolutely has the power to do this, and I think he has the backing of the vast majority of Americans.
Oh, I think he does too. And but I wonder if the congressional Democrats have enough support to rain hell on Trump, Graham.
I don't think ultimately they do have. I know they'd like to, and I know that there are a lot of Republicans in Congress who, when they're not spending their day searching eBay for a spine, they are
Murkowski, Rand Paul.
They're quite willing to jump in, and and I love Rand Paul in so many ways, but his kind of rabid pacifism, as I like to describe it, is just out of hand. Unfortunately, I think Rand Paul, even if we were under direct attack from a foreign military power, I think Rand Paul would be saying, "Oh no, we can't deploy the troops. Let's get together and discuss this."
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, I don't think ultimately the Democrats are going to be able to rein Trump in on this, because it's just too the negative consequences of Congress passing legislation that forever ties a president's hand in terms of taking certain military actions against foreign adversaries of whatever type. That's too dangerous, because then you're going to get to the point where certain of our foreign adversaries look at us and say, well, their president is not going, if we do this, their president's not going to be able to do this or this or this. He's going to have to go to Congress first, and they're going to discuss it, and they're going to have some committee meetings and some very expensive luncheons, and eventually they'll agree to talk about agreeing to something, and it's never going to work. So for that reason, I believe there are enough. Thankfully, there are probably just about enough Republicans and probably a few Democrats who, at the end of the day, will stand up and say, we just can't do this. We cannot, okay, we can't stand Trump. We hate him. He's the worst person ever. But we still can't completely tie his hands, because if we do that, future presidents' hands are also tied, and that could lead to a very bad situation.
And does Trump even care about what the progressives are threatening, Dave?
I believe that when it comes to killing narco-terrorists and destroying their boats, President Trump keeps his own counsel. And right. To date, I think he realizes that the majority of Americans actually do favor proactive attacks on drug runners, those people who want to visit death on the United States communities. It shows something that we don't think about, and that is that the cartels now realize that they don't have the protection that they used to have that came from Venezuelan President Maduro, and it simply doesn't exist anymore. And that means also that the money Maduro lined his pockets with is going away as well. Interestingly, most recently, President Trump has ordered a complete blockade on all sanctioned oil tankers leaving and entering Venezuela. So that's something new. And he's upping the ante with each passing day. Basically, Trump wants Maduro gone and has established a pretty formidable naval armada just outside Venezuelan territorial waters to show Maduro he means business. You know, the Trump gambit is not without its drawbacks, though, because Russia, China, and Cuba all have advisors in Venezuela. And if it escalates to a conflict, we've got to be very careful that we're not whacking Russians and Chinese. Don't care too much about
Sorry about the Russians. You got in the way.
Yeah, I don't care too much about the Cubans, but there's 25,000 of them with 500 active duty or active military personnel serving as trainers. So it's something to be concerned with, but we'll just have to wait and see. But like I say, I don't think Trump worries too much about the progressives and their Trump derangement syndrome, which is what an unintended consequence of TDS, and that is that now you don't believe anything they say.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and I just want to jump in here after what you said, Dave. You talk about the advisors, so-called advisors in Venezuela, the Russians and the Chinese. Well, for a start, I think I don't think we should concern ourselves with them, because I think Trump should just tell the Russians and the Chinese, if your advisors happen to be in the wrong place at the wrong time, that's not my fault.
Yeah, get your advisors out of the country.
But the other thing is that you see that really, you know what, this is not actually about the drugs. I mean, fentanyl isn't. I'm always been against drug bans on drugs, you know, if we're talking other type of drugs, but fentanyl is literally a lethal substance.
Well, it is if you mix it with other stuff.
And
I mean, fentanyl is necessary for people, in the hospital, cancer.
Sure, it is, but
fighters.
So it's I mean, it's literal. I mean, I heard Trump.
But you wrap it up in an illegal drug, and yeah, it's going to kill you.
Lethal, yeah. So I think it should be. But here's the thing: this whole thing with Venezuela, it's not about the drugs. I mean, hitting some drug boats, that's all about, okay, Maduro is definitely fine, is lining his pockets, certainly, with illicit drug money. Blowing these drug boats up is affecting Maduro personally, probably, and affecting his regime. And so that's a good thing. But this whole thing, it's not, the drugs that's a whole kind of B story here, because the real story is that Venezuela is a danger to the United States because it is so close to us, and it is open doors to the Russians and the Chinese and various other people who seek to do us harm. And that's really what it's about. It's not really about the drugs.
So, Andrew, are we just poking the bear?
All right. You're all going to hate me after I provide this little response here. But I'll say this.
So I'm going to have to start, deciding whether or not I'm going to have you on my tail.
If Scott Cosenza, he's our legal affairs editor, he's a great constitutionalist, he's a non-interventionist. If he were here, I'd ask him point blank, does America have the legal authority to do all these attacks on Venezuela? I'll also preface this by saying, Michelle's absolutely right. The United States has failed on this war on drugs. This is one of the most costliest and ineffective battles that the United States has ever embarked upon. Now, without that being, also, I'll say this too. I completely oppose Nicolas Maduro. Socialism has destroyed Venezuela. It used to be a beacon of wealth, but then Chavez and all his thugs that destroyed Venezuela. But now, I do have questions about this with these attacks. One is that, do we have evidence that Venezuela is all of a sudden now manufacturing the drugs? There's many people, including, Michelle's not going to like this, Senator Rand Paul, who says there's not much evidence suggesting that Venezuela is participating in this. Second, when Graham said that it's not just about drugs, he's correct. But there's also two other things. Sorry. Oil. Venezuela is sitting on one of the largest known reserves of oil in the world. Two, it's also about regime change. They want to kick out Maduro. That's no secret at all. But the problem with that is that if you succeed in this regime change, that's going to backfire on the rest of Latin America. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, he regularly talks about how the region is going through a complete transformation politically. How a lot of it's turning right. A lot of elections have resulted in conservative leaders. However, if the United States is going to kick out Maduro and his socialist regime, that could backfire, meaning that other countries will then resort back to leftist regimes and saying, well, the United States is not going to, Western countries are not going to support our political decision. So why should we vote the way that is? Last thing too. Polls. I saw a recent poll, CBS News poll, and it showed that, maybe question the source of it, but look deeper, it's pretty even. Anyway, polls show that 70% of Americans oppose taking military action in Venezuela. And this is the constant theme for the last 100 years. Americans oppose a war, but politicians keep demanding a war. So, I'm going to wait for Scott Cosenza's answer. Maybe Mr. Graham could answer that question too. But for now, I'm on the sidelines of whether this is a good thing or a bad thing.
I think the answer to a little bit of your question and concern is that it was kind of methodical that Trump would designate narco-terrorists as a foreign terrorist organization, which then leads to the opportunity to do far more invasive and, I guess, permanent solutions to some of these problems. What I find interesting is that the media consistently says the alleged drug runners. Yeah. Never mind that when the missile hits the boat, there are all these packages of fentanyl flying everywhere.
They're now at the boat.
These are not alleged drug runners. They are drug runners.
Right.
Yeah. It's not ticker tape parade stuff.
Well, here's the thing about that. You look at those boats, and you look at those outboard engines. Each one of those boats has got a roughly, I would say, about $150,000 worth of engines on the back.
Damn.
Those are not poor fishermen, and those are not people who are resupplying the little islands with fuel, as the left is now claiming. No, you don't have $150,000 worth of engines if you're going out to catch some mackerel.
And what do you do for fishing tackle when you're in a semi-submersible? That's what I want to know.
Right. Well, it does appear that the progressive left is not interested at all in saving the lives of American constituents. Trump, at least, is targeting and removing the very same people that were at the last rave, taking money from your teen to get that ultimate high. It's that moment you've all been waiting for. C5 presents a segment we all call Just for Fun. Oh, let's talk about Christmas movies and see if we have the full panel by the end of this segment. Round the horn, starting with Graham. Favorite and worst Christmas movie, in your opinion, Graham?
Well, I think I've pointed out before on C5 that I don't generally celebrate pretty much any holidays.
You mean you're not hooked on the Lifetime right now, just binging?
No, not really. No, I don't do the. I've cancelled my subscription to the Hallmark Channel and everything, and Christmas movies. I don't recall watching more than maybe a couple of Christmas movies in my entire life, to be honest. I will say that one that I did definitely watch many, many years ago was A Christmas Carol, of course, the adaptation of the Charles Dickens movie. For my money, that may be, well, I can't really say that's the best Christmas movie of all time because I haven't seen all of the other ones. But I still think that in terms of the story and the whole thing about that movie, I reckon probably it's got to be a contender for one of the greatest Christmas movies of all time. As for the worst, I'm going to say one of the only other Christmas movies I've ever watched is Elf, with Will Ferrell. And he can be a really funny guy sometimes.
He's so obnoxious. Who likes him? I don't like him.
And then other times he is just so, and I was going to use that very word, Sarah, he is so obnoxious sometimes. And he was in that particular movie. So best Christmas movie of all time, A Christmas Carol, worst, Elf.
Ooh, yeah. Dave?
Well, the opinions of a total movie holic here. The best Christmas movie, I think, was the 1938 version of A Christmas Carol. So I agree, A Christmas Carol is great with I'm in agreement with Graham, but this one starred Reginald Owen as Scrooge and Gene.
It was scary, wasn't it? It was really scary.
And Gene Lockhart as Bob Cratchit and Kathleen Lockhart, his wife, as Mrs. Cratchit. I consider that to be one of my favorites and hits the top of the list.
And actually, Dave, I'll just chime in that when I was saying A Christmas Carol, the version I watched many years ago when I was a kid, and okay, that movie was a little before my time, but that is actually the version of the movie I'm talking about. So
we're in total agreement then.
Absolutely.
Let's look at the worst Christmas movie, and oh my goodness, there are such a number of.
There's a lot of them.
But my favorite worst is the 1964 Christmas sci-fi movie called Santa Claus Conquers the Martians.
Oh,
Oh my gosh. It had all these cardboard sets and hideous acting.
Miss Michelle, what's your favorite?
I have several. I love It's a Wonderful Life. It's a great family movie, and I never get tired of seeing it. I agree with the other panelists that I do love A Christmas Carol. I love White Christmas, Christmas with the Cranks, and the Santa Claus, because Tim Allen is just the funniest guy. I love watching anything with Tim Allen. I don't have a worst, though. I don't think I sat down and watched a movie I wouldn't have watched Elf that I didn't like for Christmas, but I'm usually geared toward family, feel-good movies, or anything with Tim Allen.
All right.
You just reminded me of one movie that I didn't even consider, actually, and that is a movie called Fat Man with Mel Gibson.
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah.
That movie, that was a great movie.
I like Bad Santa. I liked Bad Santa with Billy Bob. No, okay. Well, I'm going to go because I'm still punishing Andrew. I love National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation, because to me, it shows you what most families go through, and it's kind of real, except for it's kind of stupid. But you're dealing with trying to make the perfect, Christmas celebration, and it's not gonna be. Your mom's going to be mad. She's going to push you out of the kitchen. And then she's going to wonder why she doesn't have help with the dishes. You got stuff like that going on. And I love the fact that is what the movie's all about. My ultimate hate it. Yeah, it's going to be Elf and anything on Lifetime. But, the other thing is, Yes, Virginia. Die Hard is like Christmas movie, and I love Die Hard.
Oh.
I will watch Die Hard twice this year, just because it's good. It's good.
Ho, ho, ho.
Santa.
I will say I don't like when people try to be like me in these movies. Nobody can do it except for that handsome brute named Dave Patterson. Or perhaps John Barrymore. Ooh la la. But I will say, I will be a good sport. I will say, because there was no Santa Claus in the movie, I'd pick It's a Wonderful Life with James Stewart and the lovely Donna Reed. But don't tell Mrs. Claus what I think of Donna Reed between 3 and 5. But the worst will have to be one of Dave's favorite movies, A Christmas in Connecticut. I was watching C5 the other day, and I agree with that genius Andrew Moran, who said Barbara Stanwyck can't do comedies. So I'm going to have to say that's one of the worst Christmas movies in the history of cinema.
There's a movie out that Goldie Hawn and Kurt Russell did, and it's called Christmas Chronicles. And it is funny and cute, and it's good. It's really good. I thought it'd be stupid, but I watched it, and it was really good. It just doesn't have, the length of time needed to be a classic. So anyway, if you're watching Christmas Chronicle, you'll like it.
Santa Claus? live and in person. One night only.
I have a recommendation as well. Just watched The Man Who Invented Christmas. If you like period pieces, that's really good. It gives you an insight into Charles Dickens. And then there is a period piece that kind of covers the gamut, and that's Dickensian. And it's a series. It's great. It is really great.
What, are you on drugs, Dave? I'm
No.
just asking.
Yeah, I'm just saying. No.
Okay. He's just saying. All right. Well, any last words, kids?
Ho, ho, ho. Happy Festivus, everybody.
Merry Christmas, Andrew.
Yeah.
Andrew, who is this Andrew? Oh, he's an economics guy, right? He's a smart man.
He is a smart guy. He's a weirdo, but he's smart. And he's a little bit perverted sometimes, but he's still smart.
He's smart.
They should keep him off of social media then. I hear Australia's banning that stuff.
Yeah, Australia's already banned Andrew Moran.
Okay. I'm catching up on the news from reading Liberty Nation.
Why aren't you always on the, catching up with the news? Anyway. All right, guys, we got to get out
Always
of
on
here.
Liberty Nation.
That one better than anticipated because I figured there's going to be fisticuffs on some of these movies, and some of them are so stupid. Yeah, we're going to agree with you. Anyway, thanks for tuning in. See you next time. Maybe see you next year in the Funny Bone Zone. That's it for our Conservative 5 panel today. A special thank you to Lisa K. Donner, Scott Cosenza, and Michelle White for picking up where I left off on C5. Check out our other C5 shows and segments on your favorite video platform, YouTube, Vimeo, Rumble. We're on them all as well. Liberty Nation News has its own Roku channel where you can see all of our TV productions. Stop by to see our new aggregate polling operation, The Public Square. I'm your host, Sarah Cowgill. Thanks for joining us today, and get your fix of free thinking and free speech at libertynation.com.